I'd love to see it happen this year, but we don't even know what it is yet. I mean, the framework is supposed to be coming out in September. Is it going to be comprehensive tax reform, both business and individual? Is it only going to be business? Is it going to be standalone? Is it going to be coupled with infrastructure? There's just a lot of details that we don't know, and so I can understand them wanting to use budget reconciliation, so you just have a majority vote, but there's not a whole lot of time to do it.
I would agree with you until you start seeing some of the entreaties that Donald Trump has made over the last week or so, where he is reaching across the aisle. So maybe it's not necessarily a Republican pure play on what happens with this. Maybe some of the expectations get scaled back, but there's a little bit potential room for bipartisanship. We were just talking about this off camera.
Well,
what happens in that scenario?
The bottom line is that people are starting to realize that Donald Trump is really an independent. He may have an R behind his name, but he's a deal maker, and he wants to get things done. And quite frankly, we've had gridlock way too long in Washington, D.C. Just because you wear the same color uniform, whether you be a Republican or a Democrat, doesn't mean you're going to vote the same way. And so I think the American people really want to start seeing some things done, whether it's pro-growth, job-creating tax reform, whether it's reform to the Affordable Care Act, whether it's immigration reform. These things have been lingering for far too long.
And nothing getting done. So when you hear the tweets that we've just seen from the president this morning, where he's not saying, forget it, what Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have said happened last night is not true. That's not what he's doing. He's saying we don't have a deal done yet, but it'd be crazy to kick the dreamers out, basically.
Look, we're not going to kick the dreamers out. We need comprehensive immigration reform that creates a rule of law. We are a country which is governed by rule of law. We need tougher border security. We need to have a different pathway to citizenship than legal status. We need to have more temporary work permits. Look, people who came here illegally, all right, they might be able to get a pathway to legal status, but they shouldn't jump the line for a pathway to citizenship. And that's just a basic fairness argument, which a significant majority of Americans would agree to.
Now that we've resolved immigration reform, let's turn to taxes.
All right, that's good.
What would a passable tax reform package sometime, let's say, in the next year look like?
Well, I think you could get agreement on business tax reform. Business tax reform is not just C corporations, but it's also a form of businesses that might be taxed as individuals. Look, we need to have a simpler, fairer, and more competitive tax system. Businesses are the ones that end up creating jobs in this country. We are not competitive internationally. When I went around in 2012 talking to the American people about tax reform, we agreed on a comprehensive tax reform that would take the top rate down to 25%, by the way, both for individuals and corporations, that would significantly limit deductions, and that would tax on a territorial basis rather than on a global basis, if you will.
Which would make us more competitive.
Right, and it got over 80% agreement. One of the questions is, what's the fiscal test going to be?
Well,
all right.
That's what if they said, all right, it's going to be some dynamic scoring. We're going to assume we grow quicker, but I'll give you infrastructure too. Would any Democrats sign on to that if it was?
Well, that's the key. See, I think a pathway forward is to couple tax reform with infrastructure.
But then you're spending money on infrastructure and blowing out the deficit on the dynamic scoring.
Well, but let's talk about that. This is a very important point.
This should kill you.
No, Donald Trump. I have been a long-time advocate of something that Donald Trump recently came out for, and that is the debt ceiling limit is dumb. And it has not worked, okay? We shouldn't focus on deficits. We shouldn't focus on debt. We should focus on debt as a percentage of the economy. We need to repeal the debt ceiling limit. We need to go to a debt to GDP limit, which has targets, triggers, and automatic enforcement mechanisms. What that will do is it's pro-growth. You grow the denominator faster than the numerator. And on the numerator, it forces the 70% of spending that's on autopilot on the table. It forces the $1.2 trillion in tax expenditures on the table. It is a sane and sustainable approach.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.